Welcome to the software portion of the course. I'm going to be in Adobe Illustrator for the next couple of lessons, but you can use any vector creation software. So you can even follow along with me in Affinity Designer if you'd like as well. And this is not going to be a course that's going to focus on how to use the software tools. Some of the basics hopefully you will already know if you're in this class, but I will go over some more intermediate or advanced tools as I run across them. But the whole goal for the next couple lessons is to go through how I take these sketches and how I vectorize them to make them work as a logo. So sometimes you have these really great sketches, but when you start to vectorize it, you lose some details or you lose some qualities. And so there's kind of an art to be able to take a sketch and to vectorize it. Sometimes it's more complicated than just tracing over it because there's textures of the lines and different strokes and different things we have to think about. So I'm going to take all the sketches that I got. I just took a picture of my Procreate screen and I brought them over here in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to open up a new document. When it comes to sketching, there's not really you're in a vector program, so size is not really a big deal right now. So I would make sure I just do an 11 by 8.5 inch, or you can do horizontal, you can do vertical, however you best like to work. I'm just going to do horizontal. It's not a big deal. So we're going to create. And we have our blank document. And just to make sure our screens match, I'm going to go up to Window, Workspace, and I'm going to reset my layout. I'm going to do a layout workspace, and I'm just going to reset that. So if you're curious to see kind of how my tools look, I'm just going to reset that so our screens can match. So here we are, just pasting in some of the various screenshots we had. So what do we want to work on first? So let's go to our first sheet and figure out what was one of the concepts we wanted to see how it worked. Let's try this concept right here. So I'm just going to bring it over, make it a little bit bigger, and I can go over to my layers panel right down here, and I am going to just make sure I lock it and then add a new layer on top so I don't have to mess with anything. Pop it around. So here we are. I'm going to get my pen tool, and I can even reduce the transparency on this layer. I might have to unlock it to reduce the transparency. Let's get my transparency window. I don't know why that's not on there by default. So that's no problem because I can add it and just reducing the opacity so I can kind of see a little bit more of my vector work. Relock that layer and let's begin. So this is going to be, we did a lot of study of chopsticks. I got to hold them and feel them. I got a couple packages of these to-go chopsticks so I can kind of understand what's the thickness of them, what do they look like. So I'm having that in my head. You can even download a photo of chopsticks to trace over. And what I want to do is I want to make sure this is some crazy bright color so I can be able to see what I'm doing. Maybe just stick with the black. And notice how that one's a little bit longer than the other one. I didn't want it to be too symmetrical because I didn't want it to look fake either. And I want to round out those sharp edges. So I'm just going to select both of my chopsticks, get my direct selection tool, and I'm going to see if I can't round those sharp edges a little bit. And I might have to do them individually. Select one of them, direct selection tool, round that edge. So just going through all of this to try to vectorize it the best I can. It's not going to be exactly like the sketch. So there may be things about the sketch that aren't perfect that I want to try to address. Okay, so let's draw a little sushi roll. I'm going to get a picture real quick from the internet. So here is my little sushi reference photo just so I can get an idea of kind of the main characteristics of a sushi roll. So let's kind of see what we can do here. Let's see if I can get the rectangle tool. Just make a rectangle shape. And let's see if we can't get the curvature tool to help bend it down on both lines, just like that. Just clicking in the middle and bending down. Now I can go ahead and add the circle. And we could take our direct selection tool. I just love to round those little edges. Maybe just round the bottom too. So I'm going to click twice, round that bottom left, click twice, around the bottom right. Just kind of adds a nice smoothness to it. And we can thicken that line because you see how thick the rice is here? It's a lot thicker than kind of the idea I had in my head. So let's thicken that. Let's go to our stroke panel. I might have to do something in the middle, 1.5 points. And what I can also do is, instead of it being this perfect little circle, we can get our curvature tool, make it a little less of a perfect circle because this looks almost too perfect. Sometimes you have to zoom in to get the right lock. There we go. So there's our little sushi roll, and now we just need to do an S and a C. So I can sit there and try to trace an S by hand, or I can see if I can't find a typeface that's going to be pretty close to that style of an S. I remember when I was doing my studies and I was looking at some font and typography choices a little bit earlier in the course, there was one I ran across that had a lot of different font weights, and I kind of enjoyed kind of how it looked. It was called Montserrat. So Montserrat, let's try a medium, and let's go thicker. Let's see, a little bit thicker, so maybe extra bold. I think black, that could be too thick. It might take away from the readability, but this extra bold seems to be nice and chunky. I know we talked about, and this is really when we're making these kind of decisions, these design decisions, we've already gone through all that research. So when I'm doing all this in my head, I'm thinking of the client persona. I'm thinking of some of the research stuff we've already established and came up with. So I'm thinking that bold, thick, confident, chunky choice might be good for the typeface. So all that hard work's been done, and now it's just me just making it come to life. Okay, so looking at this roughly, I want to also, if I remove these, you can see how there's a little bit of a shadow cast there as they cross over. I can emulate that easily. Let's make sure this one's on the top. And what I'm going to do, I can even do probably easier to draw an area that I'm going to cut out with the shape builder tool. So I'm just going to almost cut out the shadow area. Make that a different color so you can see. So I just drew a little box here, and I'm going to take this one right here and select my little box. Take that shape builder tool, I'm going to hold down Option or Alt and just clip all that out. So what that does, it emulates that little cast shadow without having to cast a shadow. And so what I see here is in my sketch, and this is why sketching and vector art sometimes needs to be tweaked. So that looks great as a sketch, as close as it is. But now that I have a little bit more of a wider typeface, see how this is more condensed and shorter in width, and this one's a little bit wider in length. When I do that, when I tuck it really close to the object, it seems almost too tight, and it needs to have a little bit more space and breathing room. So because of this, because it's a much more stronger character here, I'm going to move this slightly over from the object. And that is going to create just enough of that extra space to let the elements stand on their own. Of course, you don't want to do it too much, or it's going to feel disconnected. So it's trying to find that right tweak space. And sketches are a guide. You don't have to sketch over it perfectly. It's just there to give you the concept idea in this case. So now I'm doing a visibility test, and I'm slowly zooming out and saying, okay, can I read the SC? Can I make out the objects? Can I tell those are chopsticks? So far it's passing the test. And I almost wonder, now that I'm zoomed out here, just going to try the black. Just going to try the black, which is the thickest, to see how that works. That might even be better now that I'm doing a visibility test. So there's one concept down. We can do lots of different versions and iterations of this later. Let's move on to a second concept. I know we wanted to try one with a knife. So is there one down here with a knife we wanted to try?